Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps YouTube Live. I'm glad to have you here. My name's Eric, attorney for 46 years, the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And our main purpose is to protect seniors from collector harassment. And our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm talking to you from a new location where I'll be for the next 2 years. Hopefully get the background fixed up a little bit better for you. New Orleans, glad to be here. Sound is good. Thank you. Thanks, Derek, my tech man, for getting this all set up. Appreciate it. Sound is a little low. What if I put this on? Does that help out? That may be what I need to do. Okay? So I'm sure glad to be here. And the topic, we got an email from someone, and they said, I have 34 credit cards. That's a lot of credit cards. And a repossessed car. I'm 100% permanent and total disability. I get VA benefits and Social Security disability. I have 2 court cases pending now for collections. And then he closed it, and it's destroying my mental health. And that's the topic today. Are you a senior or disabled person with debt that's destroying your mental health? I want to be able to help you, and I can. Okay? I want to explain why you don't need to worry. You can pick something else to worry about. Okay? Looks like my tech guy's trying to do a little refining here, which is okay. So 34 credit cards is a lot. Okay, it doesn't matter. You know, when you contact Helps, it doesn't matter how many creditors you have. I mean, if you have 1, 2, or 20, or 30, or 10, it doesn't matter. Okay? What's important for you to remember is that your Social Security, your pension, disability, VA benefits, virtually all forms of retirement income is protected by federal and state laws. It can't be taken from you. There's even a federal law that was passed back in 2012 that protects twice the amount of your federal benefits, such as Social Security, deposit in your bank account from garnishment if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, regardless of what monies are in there or where they come from. Okay? So, for this guy that's got 34 credit cards, we'll call him, he's from Texas. He's got a repossessed car. All his income is protected. He's getting Social Security, disability, and VA benefits. And he's been sued a couple times. What we're going to tell him is you don't need to worry about the lawsuit. You don't need to go to court. If they get a judgment, they can't take your Social Security. They can't take your pension. As long as you keep the amount in your bank account less than twice the amount of your VA benefit and your Social Security disability, because they're both federal benefits. So if you got, let's say you got $1,000 in Social Security and $1,500 in VA benefits, that's $2,500. That sum you get each month times 2 is protected automatically from garnishment. So if you do nothing about the lawsuit and they get a judgment, and you don't need to do anything about the lawsuit if you owe the money, you can just forget about it. They can get a judgment. If they happen to know where you bank and they tried to garnish your bank account, your bank will automatically protect twice the amount of your federal benefit that you get each month from garnishment, even if there's some other monies that happen to be in the account. Okay? So he's obviously being harassed by a lot of creditors if you've got that many credit cards. And if he enrolls in Helps, if he or she, you know, they're going to give us the debt they owe, the creditors they owe money to. All we need is the name, address, and account number. We don't need the balance. We're going to send them out what's called a cease and desist letter. See, in 1978, the year I graduated from law school and became an attorney, a law was passed called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters to you anymore. They have to leave you alone. And that's what Helps does. People enroll with Helps. They find out about us. They call us on the phone. We ask questions. If they decide to enroll, they may call us 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times before they decide to enroll. We can enroll them over the phone, push a button, while you're on the phone, you get an email from us confirming you're a member of HELPS. You get us the creditors you owe money to, the collectors, we're going to send a cease and desist letter out, and they're going to leave you alone. Um, Appreciate it, Ross Girl. Yeah, we always ask persons that find out about HELPS to share the information with other seniors. Just a lot of people don't realize this help is available out there. And there's almost a concerted effort by debt collectors and creditors to withhold the kind of information you hear from me, from HELPS, about how their income is protected, how their assets are protected, why they don't need to worry, and how Social Security and pensions are protected. They withhold that information because if seniors understood that, they would realize they could use that money for their food and their medicine. The seniors that have these problems are not the wealthy seniors. They're the half of seniors that have incomes within 200% of the poverty line. The ones who are struggling, they're the ones that have the problem. They're the ones that need to know this information. So yes, if HELPS isn't for you, remember what we do and you can share it with someone else. Okay? So if you've got the pressure from debt, and like this person said, it's destroying your mental health, please call us and talk to us, and we'll go over this and explain to you why you don't need to worry and why you're going to be okay. One thing about HELPS is, our help isn't just one time. It's literally ongoing. When you enroll in HELPS, we're your attorney literally forever, as long as you want us to be, so that you don't have to deal with collectors anymore. And if you ever have a question, if you're worried or scared, you pick up the phone and you call. In fact, I talked to someone earlier today, and he'd been sued last fall. And I actually called him back because he left a message. And the message said, I really didn't want to bother you, but I have a question. So you're never bothering us when you call us if you're worried. Never bothering us. That's why HELPS was founded, so that seniors that were worried could always have someone to call. And so I called him back, and he'd been sued last fall, and he didn't want to know what was going to happen. I said, well, nothing. They may have already gotten a judgment. He didn't know yet. Sometimes we don't get a copy of that, but I said, as long as you keep the balance in your bank account less than twice the amount of your federal benefit, no one can do anything to you. And then I reminded him, I said, if you worry again, give us a call. And I say that to anyone. Debt affects my mental health, as does not having enough money for basics like medical care and heat in the winter. I understand that, Grandmammy. And that's why I tell people, when you enroll in HELPS, you can stop paying this old debt that you have, these credit card bills or these other loans. And you can use that money for your medicine and your heat. Okay? I can't put more money in your pocket, but what we can do is, protect you so you don't have to pay this old debt, and you can use that money for your basic needs. Okay? I wish I could afford a cat for some companionship. Well, maybe if you don't have to pay some of this old debt, you can. There's lots of cats looking for homes out there, and I agree. A cat is a wonderful companion to have. Okay? This here's a note I wrote down. I said, a lady from Alabama has a warranty deed with her siblings. Parents have a life estate. Worried if she gets sued, parents would find out. And I explained to her why this wouldn't happen. I told her I would talk about this on YouTube Live today. I don't know if she's listening or not. But it covers a couple topics that are kind of interesting. So, mom and dad are elderly. Let's say they're in their latter 80s, and they have two children, a son and a daughter. I think that's the facts here. And the daughter said to the mom and dad, what you can do, you're going to stay in the home to the day you die. You could consider giving us the property and retaining to yourself what's called a life estate in the property. That means that you own the property during your lifetime, and then when you pass away, the property will automatically go to me and my brother, okay? Without there being a will. Not a bad way to do things generally. Okay, you know, the house wasn't worth a whole lot, but there was equity in the home. And I asked her what happens when the home gets sold, and she said, well, or when the parents pass away, then the home's going to get sold, and the profits get the proceeds get divided between me and my brother. Okay, so but what she's worried about is she had some debt, and if one of the creditors sued her and got a judgment, would her dad find out about it? And I explained to her that I couldn't think of any practical way that her dad would ever find out that she was sued or that there was a judgment on the property. Uh, a judgment creditor could sue her, could get a judgment. It would become a lien on real property that she owns. She owns it with her brother. There's a life estate. No one, the creditor couldn't take the property. There would be no reason that the creditor would contact her parents. I guess it's theoretically possible, but I just don't see that happening as a practical matter. Okay? And I told her not to worry about it. Okay? You know, you can spend a lot of times worrying about things that really are so highly unlikely to happen that it's not worth worrying about. And I talk about that a lot here. It helps. You know, we can talk about all day long about, you know, what ifs. What if this happened? What if that happens? You know, and if it were to happen, we'd know what to do. I would know what to do if that happened. I'd know how to comfort her dad or to tell him why he didn't need to worry about it. But it's just simply going to happen. The odds are so remote, it's not worth worrying about. Unfortunately, sometimes attorneys give advice to people based on what possibly could happen in the, you know, like you possibly could get hit by a meteorite, or you could get hit by a bolt of lightning if you walked outside and then there was clouds. Now, do you worry about getting hit by a bolt of lightning? No. Do you worry about getting hit by a meteorite? No, although it's happened. It happened once in, I think, 1956. A lady in Georgia was laying in bed taking a nap. A meteorite went through the roof and hit her on her stomach. There's a picture on the internet with a big bruise in the hospital. But she lived into the 1970s. Didn't kill her. The only other meteorite I remember was a couple of years ago in British Columbia. A lady was on her bed and a meteorite came through the roof. Didn't hit her, but landed right next to her on the bed. Now, if you worry about getting hit by a meteorite, then I guess you could worry about some of these things, but you don't need to worry about that. I mean, the odds are so remote that it's not worrying. We don't want to. We don't want to worry about. Yeah. So we're happy to talk to you about, you know, your questions. You know, helps. You know, we represent people. We provide legal information, and we don't give legal advice. You know, our clients are judgment proof. That means their income is protected, their assets are safe, and we'll talk to anyone, explain to them what their rights are. Okay? So this person calls us from Oregon, and he says, our only income is Social Security and a small federal pension. If we quit paying our bills, uh, will we be able to save some money? Is that allowed? We have no assets, mortgage on the manufactured home, and we rent the space where we live from. So, good question. So, I've already explained how your Social Security and any other federal benefits, twice the amount you get each month, is automatically protected in the event someone sued and got a judgment and garnished your bank account. Well, first off, if you stop paying the debt, you may never ever get sued. You could, okay? And if you got sued and you owe the money and you did nothing, they're going to get a judgment, which is fine. Twice the amount of your federal benefits is protected. But let's say you wanted to save some money, and with that extra money you saved, or if you had more than twice the amount in your account and they happened to garnish that account, could they take it? Well, the rule that was passed in 2012 that protects twice the amount of federal benefits in your bank account, that's enforced by your bank. If they got a writ of garnishment, they look at your account, they can determine on a code from where the deposits came if it came from a federal source, and they protect twice. Now, if you had more than that, the excess could be held up, but then you could file a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption to have that excess released. Okay? You wouldn't even need to worry about saving money if no one sued you. You could have a separate bank account or a savings account. Only time it would be an issue is if you got sued. And if you weren't saving a whole lot of money, and you were worried about it, you could either keep it in cash, you could keep it in preloaded debit card, or a cashier's check, or anything like that. And then that money would be safe that way. Okay. How can someone find out how much the lien is from a Medicaid estate recovery program? I was told I need to go back to an assisted living facility or die first. Um, we could talk to you about, it's kind of complicated to talk to you about in this type, but call us on the phone. We'll be glad to go over it with you. So it actually, I'm assuming that you went into a nursing home or a recovery facility for a while and Medicaid paid for it and they have a Medicaid lien and now you're back in your home. Okay? Um, if you sell the home, is there going to be a claim for Medicaid recovery? There may be. I guess there may not be. It depends. Okay? Jimmy says, since joining helps, my life has become scary quiet. I'm enjoying the silence. Not the first time I've heard that, and we'd like to hear that. Hi, Eric. Discover is threatening to increase my monthly minimum due in the next 60 days. What should I do? I can't afford more out of my Social Security. Well, you don't have to pay Discover if you don't want to. Okay? They want you to increase your monthly payment for your credit card debt. I mean, you can do that if you want to keep the Discover card. If you can't afford it, you could stop making the payment. Remember, they can't do anything to you. Now, Discover is one of the creditors more likely to sue than another creditor. And I think they do that because they want the word to get out there that they sue and that people would be scared and therefore they would pay the debt to Discover. Well, I want to be clear that if you're a senior and you've got protected income, you don't need to fall into that trap that they laid. Okay, if you get sued by Discover, you're not going to have to go to court. Your retirement income, your Social Security, your pension is protected. You don't need to worry. Okay? You don't need to worry. So this person contacts us from Pennsylvania, and he says, about 3 years ago, I had credit card debt, 5 different credit cards, and enrolled with a debt management company. I'm making monthly payments for the last 2.5 years. Now, if you've been listening to me for a while, you know what I'm saying next. If you enrolled with a debt management company, when you enrolled and you were on Social Security or pension, did they tell you, by the way, you really don't need our help because your Social Security is protected. No one can take it. And you could be protected from debt collectors with a cease and desist letter. No, they don't tell people that. Even the nonprofit ones don't tell that. Why? Because if they told you that, you wouldn't enroll with them and they wouldn't make money off you. And so a lot of ways they're scammers when it comes to seniors by not giving them the complete truth. I talk about that a lot. So he says he's been making payments for the last 2.5 years. Then about 2 years ago, I was forced to retire when I turned 62. Had health issues, and now I'm collecting Social Security disability. I have maybe 20 payments less, and it's getting hard to make the payment. Then I saw your video, and I wanted to check if I can just drop out of this. Absolutely, yes. Okay. I live in Pennsylvania. I'm 63, collecting Social Security. I'm paying a mortgage on my house, and I have a car payment. Yeah, if you're wrapped up with a debt management program, you don't and you can't afford to pay it anymore, and you don't want to pay it anymore, and you need the money for your food and your medicine and your other needs, you can stop paying it. Okay, we talk about that all the time. Why do we talk about it all the time? Because we get calls all the time from seniors, sometimes put into utter poverty, making a payment to a debt management company that they don't need to pay and they were never told that their income was protected and safe and that no one could do anything to them. So that's what we want seniors to know. So why do they want a higher payment? Um, well, they'll probably always want a higher payment. Maybe they're nervous that you're not going to pay it and they want to try to up the amount to, maybe they figure the balance you owe is too much for the payment you're making. Kat asks, if you have a credit card you can't pay for, you tell them to close the account or you just let it go and you send a cease and desist letter. Um, you don't need to tell them that you're going to close the account. That to close the account, you can just stop making the payment. Um, if you call them and tell them you to close the account, then they might try to get in discussion. Well, how are you going to make the payment? And it can be upsetting. You can just simply stop making the payment. And then when you enroll in HELPS, you're going to give us the creditors or collectors you owe money to. It can be an original creditor or a debt collector. Technically, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act applies to debt collectors, not original creditors. However, there's at least 7 states that take that law and apply it to original creditors. But it's our experience here at HELPS that if we send a cease and desist letter out, even to an original creditor, they're going to stop calling you on the phone. They may still send you a bill, okay, but they're not going to call you on the phone. So yeah, you can stop paying it. You don't need to call them and tell them you're going to do that. So Grandmammy, yeah, you can call and talk to us. If you have debt that you're dealing with, we can help you with that. You're going to be fine. Things have a way of working out. I'm 74. I've been an attorney now for 46 years. Um, we live in a wonderful country, believe it or not. There's a lot of help for people that have problems. There's a lot of laws that protect seniors. So, so there, things do have a way of working out. And you can call us. We're glad to go over things with anyone. At 69, I get my Social Security check and one other. I have 60,000 of unsecured debt, including 7,000 at my bank. Can they close my account because my credit score is below 600? Um, I don't know close what account. You close your bank account? No. So what I would be telling Hollywood, you know, 60,000 is a lot of debt. Uh, and you could choose to stop paying that if you want. Okay? Now, what about your bank account where you bank? If you stop paying that credit card debt you owe to your bank, are they going to close your bank account because you don't pay that debt? Um, no. If it's a credit union, yes. If it's a credit union and you're not going to pay them anymore, then you want to change to a different banking institution where you don't owe money. Credit unions, when you sign up with a credit union on your bank account or on your loan, you gave them permission to take money out of your account to pay a debt that you owe them. Banks don't require that. The only bank that has that requires that is Truist Bank, and they started that about a year ago. Other banks don't. It's not the practice of banks, if you don't pay them on a credit card debt, to cut your bank account, to close your bank account down. They don't do that. Credit unions do, banks don't. You could change if you felt uncomfortable. You don't have to. Okay? I just saw where the government is going to garnish Social Security and jobs for people that owe student loans and in default. Can they do that to seniors also? Well, they've been able to do that before. And because of COVID, they stopped the practice and they slowed it down. We were involved in a lawsuit to get the government to change how they get people on what's called income-based repayment plan. Now that's going to still be there. The law may get modified, but right now, if you owed a student loan, the most that they would do is they could offset 15% of your Social Security. But if you're a modest or lower income senior, you should be able to get on what's called an income-based repayment plan and not have to pay anything on the student loan. Okay? And as far as your employment, they don't sue. Student loans don't sue. They have a right to offset 15% of your income, okay, from a job. But once again, if your income is low enough, you can get on what's called an income-based repayment plan, not have to pay anything. And that would include seniors as well. We have an email that explains how to do that. We don't help people do it, but we give them pretty clear instructions on what can be done. So if you have a question in that regard, you can always call and talk to us. Johnny from Massachusetts says, what if you're on Social Security disability for 20 years, Eric, and you have $50,000 saved in a brokerage account, all saved from Social Security? I have a judgment for $7,000. That's a good question. Okay, and I'll answer it. Okay, like I said earlier, I'm 74. Probably did 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies before he started Helps. And Helps since 2012. I've never seen a judgment creditor ever garnish a brokerage account. It's theoretically possible. How would they find out about it? They'd have to sue you, get a judgment, find out about it. And if they were, then it becomes a complicated mess, because technically any money in another account that came from Social Security is protected. But if you have a brokerage account, and it's had earnings and interest and dividends and stuff, that's not technically protected. But as a practical matter, I really wouldn't worry about it. Johnny from Massachusetts. When someone enrolls in Helps, they give us the creditors they owe money to. Usually that's the end of it. You could get sued. If you get sued, we send a letter to the attorney that sued you, let him know that your income and Social Security is protected, that you're not going to do anything. We understand they're going to get a judgment. Tell them not to touch your bank account. They can anyway for the reasons I just explained. So, no, you really don't need to worry about it. It's one of those things that while technically it's possible, like you could drive to Circle K on Friday night at 10:07 p.m. and get hit by a drunk driver. But if you don't worry about driving to Circle K at 10:07 p.m. to get a Slurpee and getting hit by a drunk driver, then you don't need to worry about that. Okay? So I think I explained why unlikely they would do anything. Really, really, really unlikely, especially credit card debt. They don't, yeah. So my birthday was 2 months ago, guys, but anyway, that's okay. I understand that. So Kristen isn't related to me, although she has the same last name, but I think she spells it with an O and not an E. She's an attorney at Helps, and she's done a couple of the videos. Yeah, she is Norwegian. And my great-grandfather was from Norway, but I have, most of my grandparents are from Sweden, and also I have some that are from Ireland. Okay. Don't worry. Don't need to worry. Yeah, so Ms. says, I'm on the student loan repayment plan now, but they said I can't read that. I still have to wait and see about what's coming up. Yeah, things are changing in this, but it's going to be okay. I just don't see there being an issue. With student loans. And we'll be on top of it, I guarantee you. So this person contacts us from Florida. I just say this right now. I'm really glad to be here with you today. I'm glad to be where I'm at now, so I'll be able to do this regularly from now on. And I'm not traveling anymore, so I'm glad to be here in New Orleans to talk to you. If you have any questions that we don't cover, you can always call us, 855-435-7787. Press the like button, you know, make a comment, subscribe to our channel. More people find out about helps from YouTube than any other source. And I talk to seniors all day long that are so thankful they found us, and because they never heard about us. And so YouTube is just really important that you like us, subscribe to our channel, and also share what we do with others, because a lot of seniors have these problems. You're not alone. I'm talking, when I say a lot of seniors, I'm talking millions. Almost half of seniors have incomes within 200% of the poverty line. And they owe debt more than ever before. You know, AARP, American Association of Retired People, you know, elder law attorneys, they help seniors that have money. They help the half that have the money. There's very little help for the seniors that don't have money, and that's what helps us here for. We're here to help you, to educate you why you don't need to worry, why you don't need to pay this debt, and how you can be protected from collector harassment. So this person contacts us from Florida. They say, I owe $60,000 on the home. It's worth $80,000. Oh, I think I talked to this guy. Okay, he owes $60,000. It's worth $180,000. His house payment is around $750. So if he had $1,500 in income, that was his only income, that leaves him $750 to live on, which is really tight. Age is 76. And he has 4 judgment liens. Now, he lives in Florida. Florida has pretty much an unlimited homestead exemption. If it's under a certain amount of area, like in a city, a lot in a city, no, they can't take his home. And in Florida, if someone gets a judgment against you, they can't take your home. If you want to sell the home, there's a process to have that judgment lien removed. So you could get it removed and you would get all the proceeds from the sale of your home. But he went in to talk to someone about getting a home equity line of credit, HELOC. That would be a loan on the equity he had in the home. But he'd have to make payments, interest-only payments on it. But he was denied that because of the 4 judgment liens. So, and then I explained to him, gee, if you got a HELOC, you'd still have to make the regular mortgage payment of $750, plus you'd have to pay, even if you were able to get a HELOC, which he wasn't because of the judgment liens, you'd still have to make another payment. That would leave less money than you've got already now to live on. That not necessarily a good idea. I did talk to him about the potential of getting a reverse mortgage. He has enough equity to do that probably. And in New Orleans, in Florida, there's a way to get those judgment liens removed, so he could qualify to get a reverse mortgage. And I put him in contact with someone. We don't sell reverse mortgages. But we do. I talk to a lot of seniors, and sometimes a reverse mortgage could make sense. When I started Helps, I knew the basics of a reverse mortgage, but since then I've learned a lot about them, pretty educated about them. And for a lot of seniors, they can be an answer to prayer. They're not for everyone, but sometimes I'll talk to a senior and I'll say, have you considered a reverse mortgage? And they'll say, I don't want that. And I'll ask them why, and they say, they can't give me a reason, just they heard something bad. So no, a reverse mortgage can be an answer for some people. And so we told him what to do, and maybe that will be an answer. And I could see why. He's got $1,500. He's paying $750 out for a house payment. He wants to stay in the house. Wow. If he could get a reverse mortgage and no longer have to make that house payment, then he would have $1,500 to live on. Not a lot, very little, but boy, that'd be totally different than $750. Um, can I have helps just call a creditor to stop calling me? I lost my paperwork on them, so I only have a phone number and address. Well, if you have their name and phone number and address, that's going to be enough. You let us know. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, you could call them, I guess, and get their name. You got their address, get it to helps, and we'll send them a cease and desist letter. But if you're scared to call them, let us know, and we'll call them and see if we can track down their address. It's always nice to have an account number, but if we don't have an account number, a lot of times we'll put it the last four digits of your social security number. And you can always answer the phone and tell them you're represented by helps. So L. Young says, I'm going to open a new bank account at a different bank. Can I get something in paperwork that says I can't be garnished? My other bank took my money. I don't want to go through that again. Um, it wouldn't do any good. Let me explain, but you don't have to worry, Young. And I'll talk about the old garnishment in a minute. But first off, uh, a bank has a department in the bank. If they get rid of garnishment, there's a department in the bank that deals with garnishments. The rule's been in effect since 2012. That department understands the protected nature of your bank account. The money in your bank account into which Social Security or a federal benefits are deposited is automatically protected by your bank up to twice the amount you get each month, even if there's other monies in there. If your other bank got garnished, it was probably because you had money in a savings account or a different account. Um, then in that case, it wouldn't be automatically protected. You'd have to file what's called a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption to get it released. You have so much, you have a certain amount of days to do that depending on state law. You have to do it fairly quick. Okay? Now, I've yet to meet a bank manager that understands the rule that twice the amount of your federal benefits are protected automatically in your account. Now, why is that? Because bank managers don't deal with garnishments. That's not they don't. It's the department of the bank that deals with that. So, if we were to give you something in writing that says that, and they wouldn't know what to do with it. And if you ask someone at the bank, at your local branch, they're not going to know the answer, or they're going to give you a wrong answer. But I can assure you, it's protected. Okay. We had a problem for several years, for a fair number of years. Occasionally, banks would make a mistake, not very often. Credit unions made a mistake a lot. It took them a long time to get on board, but we don't usually have a problem with credit unions and garnishments anymore. Definitely not with banks. Okay? And if there ever was a problem, we would know what to do. Why? Because we've been through it many times in the past. We have one form email that we send to a bank that outlines the entire law in plain English and gives them all the links they need to know. But once again, it wouldn't do any good to send that to them now. You don't need to do that. Okay? You don't need to worry about that kind of thing. Once again, if there ever was a problem, helps would know what to do. This person contacts us from Kansas. I left a message at the end of last week, but might have missed the call back. Yeah, if you call us and you're not able to get through someone immediately, we call people back a lot, and we enter the information in our system. We call you back till we reach you. Sometimes people's definition is, you never called me back, is, well, we've tried to call you back, but you weren't home. We called you so many times, but you weren't there. But yet they might say, well, you never called me back. Well, we did call you back. We weren't able to connect with you because you didn't answer the phone. So it says, I have a credit card debt and have to choose between paying them until I die and losing my home or walk away from the debt. You can walk away from the debt. You don't need to lose your home. No. Stop paying the debt. I was a victim of fraud and had about a 780 credit score, and they seem to protect the scammers instead of the client. I hope you can help me remove this dark cloud that is following me around. We can. That's another thing I could title one of our YouTube live sessions. Uh, Remove the dark cloud of debt through helps. That'd be a good one. I get all these ideas from you guys. Okay, we can remove the dark cloud of debt through helps. I talked to a guy today, and he had $80,000 in credit card debt, and he signed up with helps. And at the end, he explained to me, he said, Eric, almost all this debt was because of a scam. And I tried to get it resolved, but I just couldn't do it. Okay? And, you could pull your hair out trying to resolve sometimes a debt that you're not responsible for. But you don't necessarily have to do that. If you're on Social Security or a pension, you can roll in helps. We send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. Your income's protected. You don't need to worry about it. Okay? Don't need to worry about it. That's the whole purpose of help. We don't want you to worry. Good advice. Why tip them off that you have problems? Yeah, you don't need to tell them that. Adding someone else's to the car title so it doesn't get snatched. Do I have to put them on the registration too? That affects insurance. Can I just put them on the title? They won't be driving it. I think if you put them on the title, they're automatically going to be on the registration. And I'm not sure. Uh, Let me talk about the car for a second. Okay. Um, if you have a car and you owe money on the car and the lender has a lien on the car, then they have the title and you have the registration. They obviously could repossess the car if you don't make the payment. But the question I think you're wondering is, if I owe other debt and I have this car, maybe it's worth a fair amount of money, and maybe it's worth 10,000, and the exemption in the state where you live is only 2,500, and you have $7,500 equity. Is the car at risk? Well, in theory, you could say that it was at risk because you have that much equity in the car over and above the exemption that you're allowed for the state where you live. But it's our experience that helps is that it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after people's cars, even if they have equity over and above the exemption. They just simply don't do it. Okay? I've seen it done a couple times in decades of practice. Okay? Why don't they do it? For a lot of different reasons. It's complicated to do it. They have to get a writ of execution. Sometimes they have to post a bond. They have to hire someone. They just simply, and then there's a way it could be stopped normally. So you may not need to worry about doing that. You could do it. How much effect it would have on your insurance, I don't know. May not be enough. If you're really worried about it, you could. But like I said, our experience in helps is that they're not going to go after your car. Now, someone could tell you they could do that, but a lot of the information we give from it helps is practical information, what really happens in the real world. Once again, I could go back. You could get hit by a bolt of lightning, but it's so rare we don't live our lives that way. Okay? Is there a way to remove a judgment lien on my home? I never should have been put there in the first place, just me on the title in Wisconsin. Well, it depends on the state where you live. Uh, and I don't know off the top of my head of Wisconsin, but for example, in California, unless your home is worth over between 600,000 and 700,000, a lien, there's no lien. In Florida, there's a process for removing a lien, and Texas, there's a process for removing a lien. It depends on the state. Pennsylvania should increase the exemptions. Yes, they should. They should, but even though they've got low exemptions, we don't see people running into problems with creditors trying to take assets or property in Pennsylvania. Have you ever heard of a company who has a judgment against you being able to have you declared bankrupt on their own? Well, there's a process for doing that if you're a business, um, but for a sole person, I don't think there's a way to do that, and I've never seen it happen. Okay? Never seen it happen. Don't need to worry about that. I stopped using a debt management company after a year or so. So the question I have for you, um, did they tell you when you enrolled with them that your income was protected, you didn't need to pay them? The answer is no. Do they have to return any money to you? Not if they've sent it out. Okay. If they're holding any money from you that they haven't sent out and you cancel with them, then they're going to need to return that to you. They may charge you a fee, but no, um, you can cancel with them. Don't need to pay them anymore. So this person contacts us. I'm contacting helps because I have around 10,000 in debt. I have income from Social Security and workers' compensation. So workers' compensation is protected under state laws, okay? And he has a small pension, which totals around whatever it is. I'm up to date, but I'm starting to consider stopping payments after talking to the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. You know, when I read this email to us, I was kind of in a state of shock, okay? Because now the National Foundation for this credit counseling, I don't think they enroll people, so they don't make money off of seniors that enroll with them. So maybe they are more honest and truthful about telling seniors about their rights. So I want to check them out some more. But that's great that they told you that. You stop making payments after you talked with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling and learning that my income should be protected from creditors. I would greatly appreciate any assistance when learning more about this. We've already called them back, or we're going to call them back, tell them about Helps does. So if you're new to Helps and you call us, what we're going to do is we're going to ask you some questions. We're going to ask you, your name, are you married? What state do you live in? We need to know the state. What's your age? Because the information we give you could be different if you're 65 or 85. Okay? So we need to know the age. We're going to ask if you're buying a home or renting, how much you owe on the home, what do you think it's worth. We may look up the value. That's easy to do. See if there's going to be an issue there. Are you buying a car? Do you own a car? How much you owe on the car? What's the year, make, and model? Your different sources of income, how much they are. Basic information like this. And we're going to ask, have you been sued? If so, is there a judgment or is there a lawsuit pending? If you owe any income taxes or student loans, we help seniors with income taxes all the time. If you owe state income taxes, they're protected from your income, your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your retirement income is protected from a state tax collector, just like it's protected from a debt, from a creditor, from a credit card company. Now, if you owe IRS taxes, if you're lower income or poor, you can almost always qualify to get on what's called an income-based repayment plan and not have to pay anything on your tax. We tell people how to do that. So not only does Helps protect you from debt collectors, we educate you how you can maintain your financial independence. If you have a car that you owe a lot of money to, you're upside down on, we can tell you can let the car go back. If you got an RV that you can't afford, you can let the RV go back. If you got a timeshare, you don't need to keep it, you can let it go back. The list goes on. If you're sued, you can give us a copy of the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to that attorney that sued you, let him know that your income's protected. In other words, we do a lot more than just protect you from collector harassment. We're there to give you information so you know that you're going to be okay, and you can always call. Does that mean that we cannot pay our state property taxes? No, that's different. Okay, we're talking about state income tax. Now, usually a property tax is owed to a county. And if you don't pay the property tax after a number of years, there is a procedure for them to foreclose on your home. Okay, we can, but a lot of times if you're a senior and lower income, a lot of states have programs in effect where the property taxes can be deferred or waived. Okay, but we can talk to you about that. Um, and that's another reason why we talk sometimes about a reverse mortgage. Some people have property taxes. But if they got a reverse mortgage, the reverse mortgage could provide to pay for the property tax, so they don't have to worry about that. We talk about that. Okay. So this person contacts us from Tennessee. We're older, as you'd expect. My husband has been in and out of a nursing home for almost 3 to 4 years. I am here by myself most of the time. I had to step away from credit card bills for a while. I had a law firm paying them for me. I have been in the program. I'd been in the program for 2 years. I recently had to cancel them because I couldn't live on what was left of my check after paying them. There's some law firms that do debt management, and sadly, a lot of them don't tell a senior their income is protected. So now I have letters from credit cards every day. So far, they haven't started calling. I'm sure they will soon, but I just can't pay them. They take most of my husband's money in the nursing home, and I don't have much left now to pay them. I was just wondering, since there is more money to be paid in the nursing home, how do I pay them? You don't need to. You get on Medicaid. The husband can get on Medicaid, and that would pay the excess money and you can still stay in your home. How do I pay the credit cards? You don't need to. Any help you can give me would be much appreciated. I need a roof very badly. It's actually falling in places, but roofs are so expensive now that I can't afford to have a roof put on, and I have no home insurance anymore. I just don't know where to go from here. So if you don't have any home insurance, that means you own the home free and clear. We'll go over this with you. Sometimes if you get a reverse mortgage, it can provide to fix up the home, but you don't have a house payment anymore. We'll talk to you about this. Okay? We'll talk to you about this. I have a current car payment which I'm keeping, but it does scare me that one day the creditors will snatch it away. I understand. Terrible fear. Just going to believe what Eric says. Yeah. I just tell you what the reality is on this stuff. Okay, we're coming down near the end for today, and I will be talking to you tomorrow. Person contacts us from Florida. I am on Social Security and I get $1,750, and credit cards are out of hand. That'd be another topic for our YouTube live. Credit cards out of hand, senior credit cards out of hand? Question mark. And I need help to see what I can do. Well, that's what HELPS is here for. HELPS. HELP stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors and Disabled Persons. It doesn't matter how old you are. As long as your income is from a protected source like Social Security or a pension, disability, or rehabilitation, it's protected. Eric, do you like your new place? Are your cat and dog adjusting? That's very nice for you to ask me that, Judy. And I'm going to close by giving you the answer. I have a granddaughter that's a veterinarian, and she has taken the cat, and the cat is very happy. Had a difficult time with my dog, however. Finally, I got one of my sons to take her. He actually does landscaping, okay? And he was scared of, we adopted him, and he was scared of dogs his whole life. I mean, scared of animals. But he kindly agreed to take the dog. I told him, I said, Ross, I promise you this dog will be your new best friend. And he was a little nervous about it. I said, take him to work with you, and he'll make friends like you can't believe. Walk into Lowe's or Home Depot. It's the friendliest dog I've ever owned. And so now you know what he calls him? He calls him my little money maker. Because when he goes to work on some places, the dog's loose, and it makes friends with the neighbors, and the neighbors walk over and they play with the dog, and he's actually getting jobs because the dog introduces the neighbors to him. So yeah, I've been very blessed to have someone take care of my dog while I'm gone. Yeah, thanks, Judy. That was very sweet to ask that. God answers prayers, and that was one where I was worried about who would take care of my dog while I was gone. Okay, so I will see you tomorrow. Good to be here with you. And if you have any questions, please call us on the phone, toll free 855-435-7787. 855 helps us. You never need to be scared to call helps. We'll be really nice to you. We'll go over this with you. People are very thankful. There's never any pressure. It's not what we do. A lot of times our clients will call us 2, 3, or 4 or 5 times before they decide to enroll in helps. And you can look at some more videos on our YouTube Live or our regular YouTube channel. Or you can look at videos we have with senior living. Okay? So thanks for your, please press the like button, subscribe to our channel. Please refer other people to helps as appropriate. And I will see you tomorrow. God bless and have a wonderful day.